Okay, great, thank you. Good afternoon. Welcome to the House Regulatory Subcommittee on Regulated Industries. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Let's see here. And we have before us today, well, first of all, I want to thank the members of the subcommittee for being here and thank our Vice Chair, Representative Williams. Thank you for being here. And I'd like to thank the members of the audience who are here. If you are wanting to give some testimony today, if you saw the sign-up sheet that was over there, I think we have some names. If you decide you'd like to speak, if you would please add your name to that list. We have two bills on the agenda today. Both of them will be hearing only today. We have HB 212 and HB 154. I think we're going to start with HB 212 today. I think we're going to be working off of, let's see here, LC 365400. And Representative Jenkins, if you'd like to come and tell us about your bill.
Sure thing. Well, good afternoon, members of the committee. I appreciate your time this afternoon and hearing this this very important piece of legislation. So we're presenting House Bill 212 today, exempting niche beauty services from licensing. I have Megan Forbes with me from the Institute for Justice to help answer any questions that y'all may have that I don't have an answer to. And so we'll go ahead and get started. So I think the first thing we need to talk about is what are niche beauty services. These are services, specialty beauty services like blow drying, styling, hair braiding, threading, and applying makeup. So blow drying is a practice of washing, drying, and arranging hair. It does not include dyeing. It does not include cutting or altering the structure of the hair in any way. Hair braiding is a traditional form of hairstyling for African Americans and people of African descent. It is a practice of arranging, twisting, interlocking hair into weaved patterns. Threading is a traditional form of hair removal from South Asia and the Middle East, using only a piece of cotton string. And then makeup application, applying cosmetics to a person's face. So again, I want to emphasize it's not cutting, it's not dyeing, it's not using chemical processes to alter hair. So who will most likely benefit from this bill? This bill provides opportunities for all niche beauty service entrepreneurs, but it helps women. It helps single moms who do not have a higher education and can't afford it. It helps people of color, immigrant communities. Threaders are commonly immigrants from South Asia and the Middle East. So with Georgia's current cosmetology laws, to provide these services, you have to have one of three licenses, and these licenses require 1,000 to 1,500 hours of training, which, and cost roughly $17,500. And of course, that being the greatest barrier to this license, particularly for poor people, is the time to get this license, and of course, and also the money to pay for it. Research shows that 75% of the students don't graduate on time, and once they do, their income expectations really aren't any higher than a concierge, a waiter, a waitress. So it's an enormous investment with it's really not a lot of return. So this bill exempts these safe, limited scopes of services from this overbearing licensing requirement. This bill, because Georgia has already picked winners and losers in this game, because currently the movie industry, you can do these services without a license if you work for a movie company. You can apply makeup at a cosmetics counter if you're an employee of a store, but what you can't do is you can't be an entrepreneur. We basically, we're discriminating against those that want to be entrepreneurs in this. So I think anything we look at like this, we got to look at context. How common is this? So 32 states, including Georgia, exempt hair braiders from cosmetology licensing requirement. Now this bill does affect braiding cleans up the languages. There's some ambiguity in the language that we're cleaning up with this bill. 20 states exempt threaders from cosmetology licensing requirements. 10 states do not require makeup artists to be licensed. Most states, including Georgia, again, have exemptions for if you're involved in the retail sale of cosmetics. 5 states, Arizona, Arkansas, Minnesota, Utah, and Virginia, exempt blow-dry styling from cosmetology license requirements. And there's a lot of movement on this. So a lot of states are changing their laws and are currently in the process of exempting these practices. So just as an example, I found this data, a tale of two states, if you will. Mississippi removed the training requirement for its braiders. They have hair braiders. They have over 1,200 registered hair braiders. Louisiana has not, and they have 32. And they have a larger black population that would need these services. So, I mean, this means one of two things to me. Either A, Mississippi has really facilitated small business, or in Louisiana, you just don't register and you do it anyway, which is happening. It's very commonplace even here in this state. So ultimately, if there's any value in registering these companies, we need to get them registered. And if this facilitates that, it's a good thing on multiple levels. So in order to address this, in states that have been unsuccessful in petitioning their legislatures to do this, they're turning to the courts, and the states are losing. Mississippi, state law changed following a lawsuit. Texas, the Texas Supreme Court declared that the state's regulation on threading is unconstitutional. Louisiana, following a lawsuit, has reduced its training requirements to a sanitation exam. Oklahoma has a case pending. Minnesota exempted hairstyling and makeup artistry following a lawsuit. So again, I'm here today to implore y'all in this committee to let's move this issue forward so we don't make the citizens of the state of Georgia go to the courts for this matter. So when I first was approached about this, just to kind of give you my connection to this, my first instinct was that they had the wrong guy for this bill. I haven't paid for a haircut in over 10 years, but the fact of the matter, the more I learned about this and the more you learn about the people affected by this, you'll find that you belong in the middle of this issue with me. But the more I learned about this issue, that this really isn't so much about makeup brushes and blow dryers. This is about letting Georgians work and provide for their families. My dad, he was a farmer. He went to University of Georgia School of Agriculture to be a dairy farmer. Started a dairy farm but life had a different plan for him. He broke his back in the Korean War, and he found out quickly that he couldn't do that. He was the most determined, crippled man I ever knew in my life, but at the end of the day, his injuries just didn't allow that. So my parents bought an accounting firm in the late 60s, early 70s, and that's what they did for 40 years. And thankfully, the state of Georgia will allow someone to prepare taxes, and they'll allow someone to be a public accountant without a license, but we require it for styling hair and braiding. So there's a big disconnect there. My parents got divorced, and my mom did this through the 70s. I don't think you'd call her an accountant. I think you'd call her more of a bookkeeper. Her role was primarily keeping those ledgers and with her long ad machine tapes, and so it provided a living for the family through her. She stepped out of the business. My dad stepped back in the 80s and did primarily tax preparation, and we sold the business. So basically, again, the fact that the state of Georgia allowed us to do this, we supported our family for over 40 years and raised 5 kids. I went through the same thing. I retired from the Army not too terribly long ago, And at the time, my pilot's license wasn't worth the plastic it was printed on because of an economic downturn in the industry. I was fortunate enough to retire, but my pension was less than a quarter of my salary, and the disability that I was to get was a long time coming. So I had to do other things. And again, thankfully, the state of Georgia will allow you to buy a bulldozer and push dirt around without a license, and mill lumber and all the other things that I was allowed to do to provide for myself and then get back to where I was fully employed like I wanted to be. I mean, you could pay me to put brakes on your car. If we don't regulate that, but again, we regulate this, and again, I won't go on, but I could. You believe me, so all right. The fact is that birth, death, marriage, divorce, recessions, disability, life happens, and we need to give Georgians the flexibility to earn a living and not burden them with these unnecessary training and licensing requirements. We frequently, the case is made for safety in this matter. Well, I fly an air ambulance, and I'll tell you, I've seen people injured in so many ways. I'll tell you, a ladder has horribly maimed so many people. Why we allow people to use a ladder without a school and a license. Cooking dinner, that's probably the second most dangerous thing people do. I mean, it was a week ago, we had somebody horribly injured with a kerosene lamp. That changed his life forever. So the fact is, again, we could say, like everything else, there may be some risk involved in this, but it is minimal. And what we really need to be thinking about is, how can we take care of hardworking Georgians? How can we let people do what they need to do to provide for their families? The thing that strikes me about this is, in all of this, it seems to me like we have inadvertently, and I don't think it's certainly not maliciously or intentionally, but we've targeted the people with the least influence, the lowest income, the people that certainly don't have lobbyists in the hallway over there. Because again, you can do this stuff as an employee without a license, but you can't do it as an entrepreneur. So again, I just encourage Georgia to let's take the lead on this issue. Let's don't make our citizens resort to the courts for relief, and let's move these reforms forward and reform our licensing. That concludes my comments. Megan, would you like to?
Sure, thank
Okay.
you.
Madam Chair, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Megan Forbes. I am Senior Legislative Counsel at the Institute for Justice. We're a nonprofit public interest law firm that works to protect civil liberties, including economic liberty. And I just want to put this issue into perspective based off of the research that our law firm has done related to this issue in particular. We've researched licensing burdens for lower to middle income workers across the country. And our research shows that across the country and in Georgia, some of the greatest burdens in licensing are in the beauty industry for lower to middle income workers. Following this research, we took a closer look at the burdens in licensing in the beauty industry in particular. We reviewed federal educational data related to cosmetology schools, and we found that school is time-consuming for students in a way that it's not for many other occupations in the state. It's costly, and it causes many students to take on significant debt that they struggle to pay back after. Now, this is a good deal for cosmetology schools who often have their students working for free for hundreds of hours on the floor while paying customers come in and receive services. But it's a bad deal for students, and especially for students who are only going to be providing very limited and safe beauty services, the services that we're talking about here today. The required hours for training in the state far exceed the hours of training that the state requires for many other occupations. This includes occupations with a direct health and safety link. EMTs, for example, receive 1/10 of the training that hairstylists receive in the state. This isn't just an issue in Georgia, it's an issue across the country, and many states are taking steps now to modernize their laws, and we're starting to see states doing the right thing, exempting these safe beauty services from licensure, and also taking steps to reduce the total number of hours of training required for a license. So we thank the committee for considering this issue. I want to stress that the services that we're talking about today are not cosmetology, they're not barbering, they're not aesthetics. These are very simple and safe services that are being safely provided without a license in many states. So again, we thank the committee for considering this issue, and I'm happy to answer any questions that the committee may have.
Thank you, Ms. Forbes. I think we do have a couple of questions for you and possibly for Representative Jenkins as well. Representative Williams?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative, this is the first time I've seen you present to a committee. You're ex-military. Okay. You've certainly been, which branch, sir?
Army.
You're a good man. But I listened very closely to you. You took me on geography, genealogy, history, employment, retirement, financial, and mechanical. That's interesting. I've listened close. I've got one question on the whole bill.
Yes, sir.
What in the world is threading? In 1 minute or less, please, sir.
Yes. You want to go or you want me to go? I actually know what threading is now. I didn't know what it was.
You're kidding. You just learned it, though.
I learned it.
Well, go ahead. I
So
want to know what you
basically,
learned.
you take cotton string, and you make loops, and you pull out facial hair with it.
Jesus.
Kind of-
Go ahead.
And if somebody can explain that better than me, but it's done only. There you go.
Go ahead, Rep.
I can explain it because I've had it many times and it's extremely painful. Instead of plucking your eyebrows, there's somebody who takes 2 pieces of string and they kind of wrap it around the hair and pluck it out with 2 pieces of string, threading.
Madam Chair, follow up. That's gruesome. That's mean.
It is.
Lord, I don't know. Those are the questions I had. Jesus.
Chairman Martin?
I was a bit speechless there for a second. No, seriously, I have a question. I would be interested to hear other testimony if people could tell me, who we're putting at risk by doing this. Otherwise, you had me at hello. I do have a serious question though on the second page of the bill, and just explain to me really quick. You're altering the definitions to make sure that barber to and barbering don't include things that you want to exclude, which I understand. And you don't need to do that for a barber apprentice?
Let's see.
Just want to make sure we haven't missed something.
Barbering, and are you familiar with
On lines 25 through 27, you make sure you exclude blow drying, et cetera, from the definition of barber, because your action items in here, you're changing the definitions, and that's going to accomplish the task you want to have later on. And I agree with that. And I just wonder, you exclude it then from barbering on lines 33 and 34. You define barber apprentice. I guess a barber apprentice doesn't have to have any licensing at all at that point because they're just starting. I just wonder if you might want to exclude that term from something that they would have to learn. But that was a question, so I posed that. And then, if I might, Madam Chair, was it the author's intention on page? Y'all had me when you started talking about threading there for a minute. It made me lose my page. Is it your intention on page 4 to strike through? It looks like you're actually then going to require for waxing. You're going to require. You're basically taking away the exclusion for production film, television. The way I'm reading that, am I reading that incorrectly, or was that your intention?
Right here.
On the bottom, page 4, lines into line 95 and 96, 97, 98. that would, the way I read that, then if one was waxing, stimulating, cleansing, or beautifying the face, neck, arms, torso, or legs of an individual by any method with the use of hands, et cetera, that those practices now would not be, I may be reading that backwards, I'll yield, but I just, we can move on, Madam Chair. I just wanted to raise that as a point. I want to make sure that we're not doing something we don't intend to do, or if there is an intention to do that it's covered in another spot. It's a bit of a double negative in there.
Okay, I got you. I will look at this and I'll get you a good
Yeah,
answer.
because I don't think you want to take anything away from anybody.
Right.
Okay. Thank you Madam Chair.
Chairman Jaspers.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just real quickly, I mean, all of us guys, what do we know about this? But, yeah, I just know generally in this code section and others, it's about consumer safety. And so do they, look in here, it's about the use of chemicals.
Right.
And so you're allowing the use of chemicals in certain parts of this, if I'm not mistaken.
So the chemicals are basically what you would, buy in the store, what are commonly found in the home to style
Yep.
hair currently.
Well, that's just, I know that we've generally erred on the side of consumer safety and not letting, if you do it to yourself, it's one thing, but
Right.
somebody else do it to you is probably another. And so is there any, since this way I understand this, it totally deregulates it, puts it out of anybody's control or observation, is that right?
For styling, yes.
Threading. also.
Threading, styling,
All the
makeup,
different things that
yes.
you listed. So if a consumer has a problem with a consumer safety issue, they have nowhere to go, right?
Correct. This would remove it from that. And again, I think a case, you could make a case that these commonly available household items that are used every day by people in their house, I mean, there's always, for anything you do, there's an element of danger every time I go up and down the stairs out front.
Yeah, but
I
I'm
risk
not
my
walking-
life,
I'm not
but I
walking-
go up and down the stairs
But I'm
every
not
day.
walking for you.
Right.
Or
Right.
to you, I think is
Right.
the difference.
And again, it's a consumer choice whether or not they want to use these people. We, like any business I've been involved in a lot of the examples, it's all about referrals and doing a good job. And practitioners that hurt people don't get referrals and they don't get more customers.
Well, that could be in a lot of our code sections, I believe.
Right.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
And if I could just kind of weigh in on that in terms of chemicals, I often don't think of them as, I imagine that is what they are. We're talking about basic everyday. I have a small can of Tresemme hairspray in my purse at all times. These are things that most women are using every day of their lives. I would imagine also things like hair gels or just styling products, right? These are not chemicals that are intended to alter the structure of the hair, like would be used, let's say, for example, with relaxing or in permanents, correct?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, and I
perms
think that is an important distinction.
Right.
Thank you. Representative Washburn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can one perform these services that you're describing without a license if they do it under the supervision of a licensed cosmetologist, or they still have to have the cosmetology license even if they were doing it under supervision?
Actually, I'm going to refer.
Right now, you need a license to do it, period. You can't do it under the
Okay.
supervision. I think there may be, I think maybe shampooing you might be able to do. Yeah. But it's only under the supervision with shampooing, but outside of that, everything else you would need a
Okay.
license.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman, or Chair Lady, I guess is a better way to say that. Just a quick question about braiding. I mean, for how many centuries do you think individuals have been braiding hair?
I would say all of them.
Representative Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question. Do you guys know if insured cosmetologists have to be licensed? Excuse me. Do licensed individuals have to be insured?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, Representative, I don't know if the current licensing scheme requires insurance, licensees to carry insurance. I have heard questions about whether insurance agencies will provide insurance to people who aren't licensed, and we've confirmed that insurance agencies will provide insurance pretty much to anyone who wants to pay for it. But I haven't heard that the opposite. I'm just not sure if it's required with the license. I'm sure the board could answer that question though.
Okay, thank you. And I believe we have some other folks that would like to speak to this bill. Let's see here. Y'all, I think we're gonna just, if you guys wanna.
Yeah, I think so. Do you want me to?
It just depends on whether or not those that are speaking would like to sit at the table. Maybe we'll give them, or go to the podium. Okay, the podium? Okay, that's fine. Yes, let's see here, let me get you, sorry. There's your mic.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, and thank you for letting me have an opportunity to speak before you, Chair, and to the members. My name is Kay Kendrick, and I am the Cosmetology Chair Board for Cosmetology, Barber, Nails, Aesthetics, and Skincare. I have been in this industry for 45 years, and I've seen a lot of problems. I've seen a lot of good things, and I've seen a lot of damage done by unexperienced, unlicensed people. I've served on the Cosmetology Board since 2004. I'm a past president of the National Licensing Boards for Cosmetology, and I think I'm very qualified to speak to all of the questions you all had, as well as to give a little more insight into what the dangers of deregulating any of our industry could happen. With all due respect to Representative Jenkins, there is a grave danger. There's a very big danger. The biggest consumer problem we have is the spread of contagious diseases and disorders. And there is no way, if you're not licensed, if you're not trained in bacteriology, infection control, sanitation, and disinfecting, you can protect the consumers in the state of Georgia. And every single month when I go to a meeting, I have complaints from people who have been injured in salons that were licensed. I have complaints for people. I had 32 complaints yesterday of unlicensed practice in the state of Georgia. And that means we've got to send investigators out to find out why these people are practicing without a license. It is very dangerous. I speak regularly for defendants in lawsuits against malpractice. Just recently I spoke for a gentleman who someone used a chemical peel on his face. This gentleman, boy, was a burn victim. Y'all might have seen it on the Channel 6 News or Channel 4 News in Atlanta. He was a burn victim, someone that didn't know what they were doing, weren't even licensed to do chemical services, put a chemical peel on this gentleman's face. The first time he said it stung. The second time she put it on there, she created third-degree burns on his face. Now this young man looks like he has a severe case of vitiligo all over his face because someone wasn't trained properly and wasn't governed to do what they were doing. As far as threading, there is a grave danger to do threading. The young lady, the representative, spoke on behalf of the pain, but it also abrades the skin. It can split the skin. It can create sagging eyelids if done improperly. And the majority of the people in the United States that do threading do it so improperly, they have a piece of thread in their mouth. And they move that same piece of thread on each client. I have been in states where it was hanging around their neck while they were doing hair, and they say, let me catch those eyebrows, and they raise it up, stick it in their mouth, and start tweezing that hair. That is so unsanitary and so unsafe. We have cases where people have herpes of the eyes from such cases, where a lady lost her vision in New York for such a case. As far as the braiding issue, yes, sir, the braiding is not governed under our board at this time, and when it came out from under our board, it was specifically to read that they could braid, twist, sew in extensions, glue in extensions, but they could not cut, they could not do anything else. Our board was not given the opportunity to have any kind of regulation for sanitation or any kind of oversight. We constantly get complaints from these facilities where people are cutting, relaxing, doing other services that are endangering these people. And we don't even have the right to go in and protect them from sanitation, and that's a very big danger. We have a case where a young girl was getting a extension, and they dip it in hot water to seal the ends of it, and that child, 11 years old, turned her face just as they went to dip it out of the water, and that hair splashed all across her face and burned her. Those are things that we cannot afford to let happen in our state without experience in governing. As far as the blow drying, yes, you may see them only blow drying hair, but let me just tell you, just what we're seeing in the braiding shop, someone comes in and says, I didn't wash my hair today, can you wash my hair? Now they're washing, now they're pressing, now they're braiding and sewing in extensions. They're also using glues and adhesives that damage the skin permanently. So that's a danger. As far as the pressing, if you don't tell someone they can't use a hot iron that gets 500 degrees or hotter, they're going to be using that hot iron. If they're not trained to use that hot iron properly, they're going to burn people, they're going to permanently scar them, they can cause permanent hair loss. There's a grave danger to the consumers if we allow this to happen without any oversight. Your question about the barbering, the barbers can do threading. The barbers can do those services. Without any governing, we have a problem with that. So cosmetology entails the schools, as you are correct about the schools. But the schools don't have to be expensive. The technical trade schools graduate people every day. They get federal funding for it. They get Pell Grants for it. They can go to school and they can get out. But we also have one of the best apprenticeship programs in the United States and here in Georgia. A person, as you referred to, a young woman, I was a single mom. I had 2 small children. I worked in a sewing factory. I went to school at night and got my license. I got it in 7 months, okay? And as far as making a lot of money when you first come out, no, you don't. Nobody's going to make a lot of money when they first come out. But I can tell you I've put forth children through college with my income. So, yes, we do make a decent living. As far as the apprentice program, these women can work and earn a living and apprentice at the same time. They're building their clientele within the salons, so when they they pass their exam and they have their license, they can go wherever they want to, or they can stay in that shop and continue to work. There is no disability for these people to go to school. The higher expensive private schools, if someone chooses to go to them, yes, they are expensive, but they're not the necessity. I don't want to see us start to continuously degrade this industry where we are continuing to put consumers at risk. I have a very big problem with that, and I can promise you, if someone walks into a braiding or into a blow dry shop, and the lady says, I didn't have time to get my hair cut last week, can you cut it? The scissors will come out. The chemicals will come out. The problems will begin. And that's why I think we should not approve this bill. I think we can, if the legislative body is so intent on making another small license that we carve out for women that just want to blow dry and style hair, and they can be trained to use the blow dryers and the irons properly, then, so be it. This board is willing to do that. We just had a piece of legislation introduced. It's House Bill, I believe it's 1217, and in that we're asked, Gort approved us to have a smaller license for hair removal. There will be waxing, it will be threading, it will be it will be tweezing, all of the products that we use to remove hair from the face, except for lasering, and a person can get their education in 300 hours. To deregulate that part of this industry is a danger to the consumer, and it's not necessary. We can protect our consumers if you do not pass this bill. I'll be happy to answer your questions if you had any.
Thank you. And if you will beg my pardon, can you restate your name one more time?
My name is Kay Kendrick.
Kay Kendrick.
Yes,
Thank you.
ma'am.
Thank you. I apologize.
Thank you.
You do have a couple of questions here.
Okay.
Representative Hutchinson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question about your organization. Do they do like the health department or like for restaurants where they go in and monitor and give them a score, or do you just respond to complaints?
We actually, the governing licensing boards, we issue the license and we inspect the salons. And we have 12 inspectors. Unfortunately, we need more than that. We have 12 inspectors that we share with the used car lots and the funeral homes. They cannot cover all of the salons that we see in the state of Georgia. They are a massive task for them to do. We spend more of our time going in and investigating complaints than we do anything else because of the danger in this industry. But we do have 12 inspectors. And then if we have an issue where it goes into investigation, we have state investigators that follow up and do the investigation.
I just, this seems to me like a good bill, and this is from somebody who uses every single one of these services in here, from barbering to chemicals to everything. And I think what it outlines is services that don't necessarily require an entire education. I'm concerned that we're paying schools, private schools, and they are getting rich off of people who are scraping together just to get a license to do threading, which probably their mother, grandmother, great-grandmother has done forever. So I think it would be different if you were going in and monitoring and, pop-up inspections, but it sounds like you're budgeted for what you're budgeted for, it's in response to complaints.
No, ma'am, that's not exactly the truth. We were budgeted to govern the sanitation in the salons, just like the health department does. And we do that. And they do have a rotation that they go to. But we do have a lot of complaints about people unlicensed in the facilities that we have to address. And that's what they do. But as far as, I didn't want to interrupt you, but as far as the you're talking about not using things that are dangerous, the spread of contagious diseases in these facilities is massive. I mean, just MRSA. One person could die from MRSA because someone did not clean their tools. The spread of head lice, the spread of ringworm, the spread of any other number one of these diseases and disorders. And just recently with the COVID, our board, I was charged with writing the regulations for the salons to go back into business under the governor's direction. And we stepped up our sanitation practices to allow our salons. They were only shut down for exactly 2 weeks. And we have not had the first complaint from anyone about someone having contracting COVID in our salons. We take care of business and we protect the consumers. And I know I had a conversation with Representative Camp when she introduced this last year, and I asked her about, did she understand the spread of diseases, and it didn't seem, I'm not sure she understood, or she didn't seem to be that concerned with it. But I can tell you that we see a lot of skin disorders, and we see a lot of things that, even things that we don't diagnose and treat, like skin cancers and things on someone's scalp or on their face, we refer them to doctors. We refer them to doctors for cancer treatments or for investigating what it is. And if you're not trained to identify those things, it creates another danger. If you can't identify what MRSA is on somebody's skin, if you can't identify what ringworm is, then everybody that touches your salon from the sink to the stylist chair is potentially going to have those disorders. That's what we govern, and that's what we protect. We don't care if you know how to cut a head of hair. That is not what our job is. Our job is to protect the consumers for the danger of what's out there in this world. And we have more and more dangers today than we ever have had with all of the bacteria and viruses that are out there. So, when you tell me somebody can put a piece of string in their mouth and they can put that on somebody's face, and I'm not saying they all do that, because culturally that's not the way it was done. But I can tell you that's the way they're doing it in these facilities across the United States. There's another issue that when we work with the First Lady's commission to try to protect kids from human trafficking, especially sex trafficking. When you allow a facility such as the styling shops or even makeup artists, when someone takes a child and wants to sell that child, they're going to take that child somewhere to get makeup on them. They're going to take them to get their hair done. We are training our licensees and our professionals to identify, to red flag that these are children. Somebody's putting on a lot of makeup on and somebody's doing a lot of hair on them. And we can notify the right authorities that this is a problem. We also have a big problem with human trafficking across the United States for workforce labor. We see it a lot in the nail shops all across the United States. They buy these people and they force them to work in these facilities, and they pay them very little money. Licensing boards help protect the consumers from these issues. It's not just about doing hair. It's not just about doing makeup and skincare. And also in the bill we've introduced, we have compensations in there for people doing makeup and hair for weddings. We don't go like the Gestapo and try to stop them from that. That is a different thing. They can do makeup for events. And the reference was to the movie industry. I disagree, because a lot of the movie industries are coming to us and saying we want more licensed people because we're not hiring them if they're not licensed. So I just think that is a weak reason for us to start putting people out there and endangering them.
Thank you. Ms. Kendrick, I will say in defense of Chairman Camp, she and I have certainly had an opportunity to discuss this bill in detail. It has not been my experience that she either did not understand or did not care about the dangers associated with some of the things that you've mentioned before. So I would like to just kind of get that on the record.
Yes, ma'am, and I wasn't trying to insinuate that she didn't care. I don't know that she understood the severe dangers out there.
Thank you, ma'am. That is what you said, though.
Thank you.
Let's see here. Chairman Martin?
A question for the lady. I'm a little confused, and I appreciate your testimony. And if you could just help me out here. You say "we," and I'm not sure who "we" is.
The Georgia Cosmetology Licensing Board.
Okay, so I'm unfamiliar with the Georgia Cosmetology Licensing Board being on site to detect skin cancer or potential ringworm or whatever. So to explain to me how we, the Cosmetology Board, is on site every day.
We're not on site every day, but we train these people in the school to learn.
Well, and that's, I mean, again, I'm not trying to,
Yes, sir.
this is not a conflict. I'm just trying to understand.
Yes, sir.
So when you say we, you're talking about we train the people who are on site. That's just what I wanted to get.
And we as the professionals are trained, and I am, like I said, a 45-year veteran of this industry. So
Again, I'm not questioning. I'm just trying to get the straight.
I understand.
Because the Cosmetology Board doesn't actually do the training.
No, sir.
Schools do the training.
And we oversee their curriculum.
And then so you're, again, just trying to line
Yes, sir.
line up the pieces there. The question I would like to ask, and I'll direct it to the chair, and you can go with it as you wish, is, this is done, different licensure requirements are available in other states. The ladies brought up some interesting points relative to, possible infectious disease spread. I'd like to see some longitudinal data from other states and, about the number they have and what is there a difference? I mean, I certainly can see that. I just come back, and I know we're in questions, so I don't want to get in debate, but it isn't true. What I am concerned with here is, if somebody were doing this for me for free, they wouldn't need a license. All those things could happen. And if they weren't getting paid for it, they wouldn't be there is no licensure. So it's not less safe because we're paying them. And so I do want to keep in mind the ladies' testimonies of we are interested in the health and safety, but I'd like to get information from other states about their experience. And we have, I believe, options for us from the various boards, but NCSL, Council of State Governments can provide us some information, anecdotal information, longitudinal studies that might help us get to the decision when the chair is ready to move on this.
Thank you. Chairman Jaspers?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. We appreciate your passion.
Thank you.
We can tell you're very passionate about this and protecting people's safety. Just a couple of things, just to follow Chairman Martin, for these different licenses, is continuing education, is there not?
Yes, sir.
The different barbers, cosmetologists, all of them.
Every 2 years.
How many hours do they have to get?
They have to have 5 years of continuing education, and 3 of it is mandated in health and safety and sanitation that's developed by
5 days?
5 hours, I'm sorry,
Okay.
5 hours.
I was
Mhm.
gonna-
It's developed by the health department, the cosmetology board, and infection control people.
Is that an online training or is
Yes,
that?
sir.
So it's easy and accessible?
Yes.
Because that kind of leads to my question. How long, there's a discussion, a representative talk about the training to TCSG to train somebody to be a certified threader. What is that like 2 weeks or 6 weeks or a semester? What's
The biggest thing is the sanitation and how to do those services safely, because they can create a hazard. The bill that we introduced, or that is being introduced by Barry Fleming, that has a 300-hour education for hair removal.
Back up off
I'm
the
sorry.
microphone just a little
I kind of have a loud voice anyway. So,
Well, I guess-
that 300 hours would
There you
only
go.
take a couple of weeks to accomplish. It's not a very long. I think it's 4 months maybe, but that gives them an opportunity to more than just threading. That gives them an opportunity, because not everybody wants threading. And as the representative said, it is very painful. Not everybody wants that kind of a hair removal. So if we pass the other bill that has the 300 hours in it, threading is in that. And it also gives for an apprenticeship program also.
I guess I'll continue if I may, Madam Chairman.
Yes.
You know, and my same question along the line of blow drying and styling, it's got a certain number of hours that does that, but I think everybody here agrees that the braiding shouldn't have any. Is that appropriate? So it doesn't have to have this training, et cetera, to be certified in cosmetology, et cetera.
Well, we kind of fought the issue of taking that out of our legislation for the same safety reasons. And we had the Black Beauty Cultures League came and spoke, and yes, it is cultural, but sanitation's not cultural. And the dangers that we're seeing where they're using glues and adhesives in the braiding shops that we don't get to govern creates a bigger human danger too. But that's not something I can change at this time, but I don't want us to see us to go further down that hole to where we're taking more and more of our industry to a smaller piece where nobody's governing what's going on. And you're right, it's not about the money that somebody charged to do it. If you do it for free, we're not going to charge you, but you're not going to open up a storefront and do it for free. So that protects those consumers from walking in and out of a storefront. If we have a storefront that people walk in and out of all day long and nobody's governing them, then we don't have any way to protect the consumers. Now, if it comes down to a smaller license for the blow dryer people and the legislative body wants to do that, and as the gentleman said, they're registered in some states. The reason you don't have those numbers in states is because the governing body chose not to allow us to register them, not to allow us to certify them or their facilities for us to be able to go in and protect the consumers from sanitation.
Gotcha.
Representative Williams.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I've listened very closely, Ms. Hendricks. I don't know you, but I know you by reputation. I know you are very well respected.
Thank you.
For the work you do on the cosmetology board. And I've learned a lot today, and I'm listening, and I'm looking forward to us moving forward because I've had some interesting questions raised by Representative Jaspers and Representative Martin. But I will tell you this, my barber has worked for 65 years. He's 97 years old.
Congratulations.
His girlfriend's about 50, but he's quite a guy. And I'm telling you, I'm going to give him a medal. But I was going to get my hair cut, but you've managed, I'm scared to death. I ain't going again. I think I'll wait till next week. You've said some things, and I've heard some things that, and when my friend Representative talked about the hair pulling, I'm just not in the mood for anybody to do anything to my head today. Thank you.
I'm sure your barber is very well versed in sanitation protecting you after that length of time.
Chairman Carpenter.
Thank you so much. Okay, so I just spouting some hours off. So we've got every 2 years you got to do 5 hours of continuing education on the cosmetology board with your license. But yet, if someone wants to come in and learn how to blow dry, braid, thread, or wax, we're going to require them to have 300 hours of training before they can get that micro or mini license that you're talking about in Barry Fleming's bill. And I don't necessarily have a problem with you guys overseeing that industry. I just think 300 hours is a lot of freaking time to talk about these issues. I mean, I would think sanitation is a day. You know, as a restaurant owner, I take a class, a ServSafe class in a day, and I'm taking a test that evening to get me into the workforce because we need workers, right?
Yes,
and so I don't understand what the problem is in this industry of saying, look, I got to yoke you to 300 hours to come out and do something that you've been braiding hair for 25 years, your little sister's hair since she was a kid. I understand what you're fighting for,
Mm-hmm.
and I appreciate what you're doing, but I think we need to be realistic in saying, look, there's needs for people, and if they're not good at it, if I get ringworm, get me some Blue Star ointment, and I'll never go back to that person. I can show somebody on my phone in 2 minutes what ringworm looks like. So I think that all these things can be addressed in a much faster manner, and you won't see us up here getting frustrated because at the end of the day, as a representative, I want people to work. I want people to work. I want people to pay taxes. I want to have people to have money to go eat in restaurants, and I don't think it takes 300 hours to learn how to do this. Now, it may take that long to get good at it, but it doesn't take that long. The subject matter is not, I shouldn't be able to sell you a house quicker than I can wax your eyebrows. It just shouldn't be that way. And, you know, I don't know where this goes or what it does, but that conversation, we got to start figuring out how to get people in the workforce faster.
Yes, sir, I totally agree, and that's why we work hard to keep people in the industry and to allow, like I said, the smaller licenses. The 300 hours for hair removal is not just teaching them how to properly do that, but also teaching them the sanitation, the bacteria. It does take time. Our textbooks are like a medical book. We learn the nerves, we learn the muscles, we learn the anatomy, the bone structure, all of the things that entail in the services we do every day. Braiding is not a part of this. Braiding is they're already licensed. I mean, they can do that without it. The problem is not having governing bodies that go in and oversee services that these people are doing allows for danger to happen in consumers. Yes, sir, you can tell me what ringworm looks like, but can you tell me have you ever seen a germ or a virus? No, sir, we can't see them without a microscope. That person could have bacteria on their body, and I can use that same brush, that same comb, that same tool, that same hair cutting cape on 10 people and have bacteria on one person that is a deadly virus, and by the night, all the rest of those people could have it. That's what we teach them not to do.
Representative Hutchinson?
I have to agree with Chairman Carpenter. So for my license, I'm a clinical social worker.
Mm-hmm.
We're required to have training in mandated reporting. So that is recognizing signs of child abuse and preventing death.
I understand.
That is a 2-hour class online. So I have to agree, I don't understand where the 300 is coming from when I can learn life and death online for 2 hours.
Yes, ma'am, I understand your point, but the life and death is different. You're dealing with conversations, and we're dealing with touching human beings every day.
No, it's way more.
I understand what and I'm not disrespecting your job. I have great admiration for you. I have a daughter that's a victim advocate in a rape crisis center. I understand exactly what you're saying. But you're not putting every single person that you come in contact with in a day at risk of getting bacteria infections or burning them with a curling iron, or you can burn people with a blow dryer. I've seen third-degree burns with blow dryers. Mm-hmm. If you're not protecting the consumers with these tools you're using and these services you're using every single day, then, you know, I don't even know why any of us have a license. I really don't. It has nothing to do with the money. It has nothing to do with the pride of this industry, as well as I'm very proud to be in this industry. But it has to do with the passion of saving people from being harmed.
But it kind of does have to do with money, because you're saying that you don't have the budget to monitor like you want to. So this seems like it would help your situation if you don't have enough money to have the amount of people to monitor this situation. Because I could burn my daughter. I got burned as a kid, and my mother said that beauty hurts. So it just does. That's what my mother told me. I was like 8. So beauty hurts. I mean.
But did it do permanent damage to you?
My psyche.
Ladies and gentlemen, if y'all could see what I see every single day, and I saved you the horror of seeing some of the pictures I see on a monthly basis of some of the filth and some of the dangers that we see in these people. A lady in Texas just a few years ago got a pedicure, and she was a paraplegic, and they nipped her foot and stuck it in her dirty foot tub, and within 24 hours that lady was dead. A bacteria went straight to her heart and killed her. That's how serious this is. MRSA kills people, and it takes a long time to identify MRSA, and there's just so many other dangers out here. We really just have to think about a 500-degree or plus curling iron sticking to somebody's head. Yes, ma'am, but you do it to yourself, not other people.
Thank you so much, Ms. Kendrick. We do appreciate your we appreciate your expertise and your appearance here today. Thank you. Next person that wishes to speak on the bill. I have a couple of people listed here.
you mind if I go?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Tony West, Deputy State Director for Americans for Prosperity, Georgia. I'm here in support of this legislation. At Americans for Prosperity, we believe in advancing employment and labor policy that empowers people to earn success, contribute to their communities, and live meaningful lives. We believe in the dignity of work and the ability to pursue the profession of one's choice, and that's key to a thriving labor market. We agree with the sponsor. We thank him for bringing this bill forward. Right now, the licensure structure is just overbroad for these types of services. It would help tons of people to be able to get to work quicker without having to go to cosmetology school, pay all the fees associated, and get this license. I just wanted to address a couple of things that have been brought up. I agree with Representative Hutchison. If there is such a rampant instances of contagion going on amongst licensed providers, it may make sense to be investigating the licensed providers if that is such an issue when they're using harsh chemicals and doing other such things. If someone's blow drying hair, I wouldn't imagine there'd be many instances of calling the investigators asking for investigations to happen. It just doesn't make sense logically to me. Otherwise, I wanted to highlight with my limited time, because I know this has gone long, something Representative Jenkins or maybe Ms. Forbes referenced. Just the numbers in terms of people going to beauty school. Only 25% graduate on time, according to a study. They're falling in the same bucket as so many other people in the country, taking out student loans and having so much trouble paying it back. We shouldn't be having people take out student loans to go to school to study something they never plan on doing. There's a subset of these people that just want to blow dry, curl hair, don't want to cut, don't want to color. We shouldn't have to force them to go through this process. So I applaud the sponsor for bringing this bill and urge the committee's support at the appropriate time.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. West. Let's see here. Leslie, is it Rost? Roast? Yeah. Excuse me? I'm here for the next bill. Okay, sorry. Keith, are you here for the next bill as well? Okay, great. Okay, I think that wraps up our testimony today. I do want to thank you so much for those that have come and given testimony today. Thank you. As I said before, this is a hearing only today. I've learned a lot. I think Representative Williams has learned more than he ever wanted to know about threading.
Sure. Beauty is too expensive.
So we'll move this along. Thank you. Thank you, Representative. Okay, now we're going to move along to HB 154. Representative Scott.
I hope this isn't going to hurt.
Thank you. I believe we're working off of LC 339249. Representative Scott, tell us about your bill.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Madam Chair, for this opportunity. HB 154. There are approximately 600,000 licensed cosmetologists in the United States. Despite the high demand for cosmetology services, licensees are limited to providing services within state borders. The Cosmetology Licensure Compact seeks to provide licensees with opportunities for multi-state practice, support relocated military families, improve the safety of cosmetology services, and foster workforce development by reducing unnecessary licensing burdens. The Cosmetology Compact is an occupational licensing interstate compact. Interstate compacts are legally binding agreements among states. The Cosmetology Compact will enable cosmetologists to get a multi-state license to practice in all states that join the compact, rather than get an individual license in every state in which they want to practice. Like the compact for a driver's license, each compact member states agrees to mutually recognize the particular licensee issued by every other member state. The Cosmetology Compact is similar in form and function to the 8 occupational licensing compacts that Georgia is already a member of. A cosmetologist must hold an active, unencumbered cosmetology license in the compact member state in which they live to be eligible to apply for a multi-state license. A cosmetologist using the cosmetology compact's multi-state license must abide by the laws, regulations, and rules for the practice of cosmetology in the state in which they are located at the time they provide service. Georgia will be able to change a fee for the multi-state license. Like all of the other occupational licensing compacts, the cosmetology compact will be governed by a commission made up of the member states. The delegate will be an administrative officer from the Georgia Board of Cosmetology. The compact will come into effect once it is enacted by 7 states. The compact is brand new, so there are currently no states who have enacted the compact. However, there are 4 states with introduced legislation this session. The cosmetology licensure compact also allows active duty military personnel or their spouses to designate a home state and keep that designation as long as the service member is on active duty. If a military family gets assigned to a new duty station in a compact member state, the service member or their spouse can continue to work with their current compact license. If the family gets assigned to a new duty station that is not in a compact member state, the service member or their spouse do not lose access to the compact, but will need to get a single state license in their new state if they wish to continue working in that state. Also, as a military veteran, I do know that every 2 to 5 years, we are relocating somewhere else. And if we have a cosmetology license in one state and come to another member state that have a cosmetology license, I think that it would be beneficial to the service members as well as others when they come to a state that have that compact and move from one place to another. Thank you.
Thank you. Will you yield for a question?
Yes, and also I have Mr. Keith Burkout from CSG here today.
Mr. Burkout, do you have anything you'd like to say before I move on to a question?
Sure. Are you asking if I would like to give my testimony now?
Well, shall we get to Representative Williams' question first?
Let's listen. Tell
Okay.
me what CSG means before you start talking.
Yes, sir. Thank you for the opportunity. The CSG stands for the Council of State Governments. And so if there are any other questions about... Oh, so, well, did you want me to go ahead? Okay, great. Good afternoon, and thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. As mentioned, my name is Keith Buckout, and I'm a research associate with the Council of State Governments. The Council of State Governments is the nation's only national membership organization serving all 3 branches of state government. Throughout CSG's history, we've promoted multi-state problem solving and supported states in determining their respective futures, which led to the birth of the National Center for Interstate Compacts. The Compact Center serves as an information clearinghouse, a provider of training and technical assistance, and a primary facilitator in assisting states with the revision and creation of new interstate compacts. I am testifying as neutral on HB 154, the Cosmetology Licensure Compact, and appreciate the committee's interest and consideration of the legislation. My testimony today is intended to inform the committee of the provisions of the compact. A little bit of history about the compact. In 2020, the Department of Defense entered into a cooperative agreement with the Council of State Governments to fund the development of new interstate compacts for occupational licensure. The cosmetology profession was selected through a competitive request for proposal process, and CSG is excited to be partnering with the Future of the Beauty Industry Coalition on these efforts. The purpose of the compact is to create an alternative optional pathway to multi-state practice by allowing cosmetologists whose license is in good standing to apply for a multi-state license in their home state. Under a mutual recognition model of interstate practice, compact member states agree to recognize a multi-state license as authorizing practice in all of the other compact member states. The intent of the multi-state license is that it functions like a driver's license. Your home state issues the license, but it allows you to drive in every other member state. This would be the same where your home state issues your license and you'd be able to practice in all other compact member states. To be eligible to join the Cosmetology Licensure Compact, a state must license and regulate cosmetology, require that applicants for licensure pass a cosmetology competency examination, require that applicants for licensure satisfy educational or training requirements in cosmetology, and implement or maintain procedures for considering one or more of the following categories of information for applicants for licensure, and that is either criminal history, a licensed disciplinary history, or a full background check. From a regulatory perspective, the Cosmetology Licensure Compact preserves the authority of each compact member state to protect public health and safety through the existing regulatory structure. As mentioned, any cosmetologist using the compact to provide services in Georgia must abide by Georgia's scope of practice rules. And if a multi-state licensee from another member state violates Georgia's laws and rules while practicing in Georgia, they can be disciplined and prohibited from practicing in Georgia in the future. Georgia also retains authority over initial licensing requirements through this bill. Just like the 8 occupational licensure compacts, which Georgia is already a member of, this compact will be governed by a commission consisting of delegates appointed by each member state, and as mentioned, that delegate would be an appointee from the administrator of the board. The commission's authority only extends to administering the purposes in the compact, so they cannot dictate licensing policies to states. And as Georgia is a state with several military installations, and as Representative Scott mentioned, it's important to note that there is a provision allowing active military members and their spouses additional licensure mobility to ensure that the compact meets the needs of highly mobile military families. We don't anticipate substantial additional costs for states participating in the compact. There may be a small assessment for additional software required to connect the compact's database to the licensure system here in Georgia, as well as costs associated with the attendance of the delegate for an annual in-person meeting, which is required for the commission. That concludes my testimony. I appreciate the opportunity and be happy to answer any questions.
That's good. Thank you so much. You do have a question, Representative Williams.
Thank you. Information was good. I've been listening, Representative Scott, as you presented your bill. I believe, I could be wrong, but I think I passed the first compact bill in this legislature about 12 years ago as it relates to students and grading, and then the next one as it related to teachers, and both of them became law. So I'm in, because I represent the largest percentage-wise military base in the state. So we have a lot that we do with the military. This certainly helps the military. You explained some things that certainly cleared a couple of things up for me, because I'll be very honest with you, there are some states that, I just think they're so lax. I really don't care about what they say. And I don't want to see the safeguards that keep Georgians safe be a problem because they came from a state that's not as strong. I think it's a good bill. I did not know about this bill until today. Certainly didn't. We just see each other about 5 times a day. But I'll read this bill, and when the chairman moves on, whatever the decision is, I'll be in better position to comment on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Hutchinson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this, I just want to make sure, basically, we could just wrap this all up in saying this is a reciprocity bill. Or am I minimizing things?
I would hesitate to characterize how you're saying it, but reciprocity is a little bit different in that reciprocity traditionally requires some form of application or notification to the board that a cosmetologist who is licensed in another state would be practicing in Georgia. This bill would not require that, as I mentioned, like the driver's licensing example. Okay. So if you have a multi-state license from another compact member state that is active in good standing, that person could practice in Georgia. Conversely, a licensed cosmetologist here in Georgia whose license is active and in good standing would be able to practice in other compact member states, but there would be no notification or extra application.
Okay. I love that we are kind of cutting down on some of the regulation, and particularly for the cosmetology industry.
Thank you so much. We've lost some members. We're competing with a lot of other committees today. People had to be places. I learned something today. I did not realize that Representative Williams had carried the first couple of compact bills in this state. I know that I'm a huge fan of the compact process. I know Representative Belton was involved in quite a few as well, I believe, and certainly anything that helping our military families is near and dear to my heart. I just like you, and we're grateful for your service. I moved every 2 to 3 years the whole time I was growing up before we settled in Georgia, and I know that this sort of thing is enormously helpful for those families that have to relocate. We've learned a lot. Oh, Representative Williams.
If I may just explain that some 12 years ago when Governor Nathan Deal was the governor, we had a real problem with students coming from other states via the military. And let's just say they came in and had never taken Georgia history. Of course they haven't. And it was a real problem. I had a former mayor who had to move a child to Florida, get them graduated on time because of some of the requirements. And Governor Deal was a little reluctant at first, but after meeting and with several others, he agreed to the compact. And it made it so much better on the students, because if you don't live near a military base, you can't appreciate the problem of a child who might have been to 7 schools in the last 12 years. And you would not need Georgia history if you came from Alaska. So it's very difficult, but that's why. And fortunately, my Republican friends who rule with a very stiff hand helped me pass these compacts, and I'm forever grateful.
Thank you, Representative Williamson, and thank you so much, Representative Scott, for bringing this today. I appreciate it. All the information we've learned, I think it's a good bill. So I think, do we have some other folks that would like to speak? Okay, I think that'll, let's see here. Leslie, pronounce your last name for me? Rosti.
Yeah, thank you. It sounds like you guys are well versed on how the compacts work, and sounds like you might be in support of it. So my name is Leslie Rosti. I actually represent the Future of the Beauty Industry Coalition, trying to work on industry forward legislation. Interestingly enough, my background is as a nurse, and I participate in the Nursing Compact, the oldest compact, 20 years, 42 states, which allows me to go as a nurse, which I think we all would agree might be a little more dangerous profession, and go work in other states, and that compact has been safe and has been successful. Currently in Georgia, to answer your question about reciprocity, currently in Georgia you have an endorsement policy, which does require somebody coming into your state as a cosmetologist to apply for endorsement on a piece of paper. In 2023, on a piece of paper, which, as you might guess, no matter how fast the process is a time-consuming process, right? And one of the benefits of a compact is it allows people to do things in a more efficient manner. So say you have a licensee in Georgia who has a family member who's ill in another compact member state. I want to go take care of my mother, but I still need to work. If that is a compact member state, I can get on a plane tomorrow, go take care of my mother, and continue to work. Some of the people that I work with own national chains, and their interest is, of course, can I send someone from one state to open a store in another state? If we're experiencing a store that's having a difficulty, can they come to another state? So not only does it allow people to come into your state and get to work immediately, it allows people to leave your state and go work temporarily. I would point out this is intended for temporary. It is not intended for you to have a Georgia license and go live somewhere for 5 years. It is intended to be temporary. And the biggest thing I would point out is these bills are intended for the 90% of people who are just trying to do the right thing and they want to have a job. The 10% of people or less who commit fraud will continue to do that. This will not fix that problem. It does come with a fully transparent database that would allow you to track that, but that is not the intention of the compact. So it is just an intention to allow people to go get to work quickly. Benefits the licensee, benefits the state, and benefits, I would argue, the industry as a whole. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think you covered it. I don't have any questions. Ms. Kendrick, are you going to wrap us up?
Yes. And I promise this will be a lot shorter than my last one.
Okay.
I have to admit, when I first read this bill, I had a lot of concerns. And my biggest concern was for the financial commitment that this state would be required. After speaking with Leslie, and I have to tell you, I was surprised to see Leslie here today. I've known Leslie for many years. Leslie and I have fought for the industry for years. Leslie taught me a lot of what I know about disinfection, sanitation, and bacteria, because that was her background. So our education for that is patterned after some of her education. I was concerned about the clause in there about the background check, fingerprint and background check. And and I know that I've talked to them and they've assured me that's not going to be the case, but I want to make sure that when we pass this or we work with this, that the state is not required to do that for every single person in the state of Georgia, because we rehab and train a lot of people in prison. We fought real hard to get that, to put them back into the workforce, and our success rate is that the majority of them get a job, go into the industry, and they do not commit crimes. I don't want us to do anything that's going to take away from that. So if I have to do a background check on everyone, that is going to take some of that out. Now, I know that they said that it is an option. We do have a policy in our law that says, in their application, that says, have you ever been convicted, tried, and sentenced of a crime? And they have to answer that. If they answer yes, then we investigate what their crime is before we issue a license to them. If they don't, then we issue that license. And sometimes we come down the road and we find that they lied, and we have to back up and we have to take care of that business. We did go to an endorsement license several years ago, and I'm very proud even before 2015, when we combined our boards, that I led the charge in getting military people easier to get into the state of Georgia to work. And I think some of the other licensing boards have patterned after. We turned that around in just a matter of 24 hours. And we do not discriminate because one state doesn't have the same kind of hours that we do. And that's what's the problem with a reciprocity license. You have to match what their law is, and it has to be equal or exceed it. With an endorsement license, you can match a license for a license as long as it's in good standing. I'm very proud of the work they've done, and I'm very admiring of Leslie, but my concerns are still the financial commitment. I want to make sure that this is not going to put another financial burden on the state of Georgia for the cosmetology boards, and I want to make sure that we're not going to require that everybody in the state of Georgia is required to take a background check. I think that would be very detrimental to our industry. And they're assuring me that's not what's in there. So my request to you is, as the governing body here, protect our licensees in the state of Georgia and the ones that want to come to Georgia. As far as the movie industry, they come and go. We've had people ask us if they could come into the state of Georgia to do the Housewives of Atlanta or some of these other shows that they do, and we were not allowed to let them do that because they were not licensed in the state of Georgia legally. We were proud that they asked us. This will allow them to do that and protect the people better and govern the industry. But I just want to make sure that we're not creating a bigger problem for the state of Georgia. So I'm not totally opposed to the bill. I just want to make sure that we're protecting our industry and protecting the people. Thank
Representative
you.
Williamson, did you have a question?
Yes, couple of first, please leave those housewives alone. They pep me up sometimes during the week. But let me say this. I'm glad you asked that question, because I was going to address that question to you, Representative Scott. We'll talk about it offline. But see, I'm a big proponent of ban the box. I done because too many people come out of jail who can't ever go to work. And you're there and they freeze up. Have you ever been convicted of a crime? And that holds it all. So especially in some areas, we train them to go out, to not have to go back in.
Yes, sir.
Cosmetology is a major field that we can do a lot of good if we
We're
give folks
proud
that
of it.
second chance.
Would you like to address that quickly?
Absolutely. So as part of the technical assistance group and the document drafting team that we worked with to develop this, we heard lots of cases where in many states cosmetology is considered a second chance profession, and for that reason, that was part of the reason we crafted the state requirement section the way that we did. A full background check is not required for state participation in the compact. The states are free to provide one or are required to review one of three things for applicants for licensure, and that can be either a question of criminal history, like you mentioned. We are familiar with ban the box legislation, but also as an alternative to that, states can require a license discipline history question, and that qualifies as part of the information as well. Or states can do a full background check. It is left up to the member state.
Thank you for clarifying that. I don't think we have any more questions, and I'm appreciative for everybody who appeared today. Thank you so much, and this meeting is adjourned.